Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now here's your host, Roxanne Derhodge.
Hi, everyone. It's Roxanne Derhodge. Thanks for tuning in again. This week I have a special person, someone that I've actually used as a practitioner in lots of different ways from a holistic perspective. This is Tammy Rigg. So Tammy, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I often try to, on my show, showcase things related to obviously physical and mental health.
Yes.
And, Tammy's background is quite fascinating. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her background, and her business is called Spiritually in Tune. And her training is quite diverse, starting off, in the field with as an RMT, and then going on to have different specialties. So I'm going to have Tammy tell you a little bit more, and then we're going to talk a lot about kind of blocked emotions and what kind of things we need to kind of understand from a holistic perspective and treatment applications. So Tammy, tell everyone a little bit about you and kind of your path and why you kind of made this choice to come into this field.
Well, I mean, I've always had a strong connection to holistic healthcare growing up where I did. My mother having a native background, that kind of is where it really started for me. And then it kicked it up a notch when I went through my own health issues. I went through cancer. I've been through multiple other things from organ prolapse to other stuff. And I mean, that happened later on, but it really geared me into wanting to look into the body and what I can do to better myself and control what was happening, essentially. And that actually led me into massage therapy. And that's when I fell in love with the body completely as a whole, getting into anatomy and physiology and the orthopedic assessments and seeing all these different correlations that we store within us. But from my massage therapy aspect, after I was finished with that, I went into reflexology. And I was actually piggybacking a lot of programs at that point. So I was doing my reflexology. I had also done a cadaver program through Western University. I've done aroma touch as well and aromatherapy programs. I then furthered into Usui Reiki. Then I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting a beautiful woman named Yvonne, who was Japanese, and she was traditionally Komyo Reiki Kai Reiki. So then I actually spent 4 years learning that and furthering my studies into more the metaphysical, the more energetical side of the body. And then from there, I started to move forward into my Medical Chigong. And now I'm about to finish my master's in that as well. And as well as my Biofeedback. So it's been quite an interesting journey, a lot of different schools, a lot of beautiful teachers, a lot of beautiful people, and I've been quite blessed to learn all of the knowledge that I have. And I've been fortunate enough that none of it was a weekend program. It's been my life journey, and it's ultimately changed every which way I look at the human body and at the being itself now, as well as the soul.
So let's talk about emotion, right? So obviously you're in tune, and we're kind of working with the body, initially with massage. And I know in talking to massage therapists or even osteopaths or different people that work with the body, they say that when you touch the body, you can actually experience emotions. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
I find that quite fascinating, not knowing enough about it. And I know oftentimes people will talk a lot about emotions and how trauma traps emotions in the body. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it's so much deeper, even than just the trapping of the trauma. Essentially, we hold 6 gigabytes of information per second stored in 1.7 trillion cells in the body from the time that we're born and conceived. So it really does go extensively deep. But without going there just yet, from the moment that I was a kid, I've always been energetically in tune, and I've been gifted enough to be so, and be open to that, and have a mother that was extremely open to that and guiding me. So putting my hands down on people, I think the best way that I can put it is initially the moment that I put my hands down on people, it's almost like a slight tingle that goes up the fingertips, and then you feel it traveling up the whole entire arm, almost up into your chest. And then it's like the moment that it hits the heart, your mind gets these images of an emotion, of a feeling, or you actually feel it yourself. It's taken me many years, but I don't absorb anybody's emotions anymore, because you can. And especially if they're going through a lot of traumatic things that they're unaware of, and they can be projecting it. But without that being said, yeah, it's a vibration. It's a vibration that you feel. And I know it's not just me. I know it's many, many workers like me. And I'm sure that's why we all get into this field, because we all have the ability to, the moment that we lay our hands down, we can resonate with you in a way. And we can almost like bring ourselves into that emotional state of where you are. And it allows us to feel, and then further what our treatment is, not only spiritually, but physically.
So let's go right to the big guy, because I think,
Yeah,
you know, most
sure.
people have been through Reiki. I would
Yeah.
assume most people have tried reflexology, which again, all is really
Every one of them ties in. Every
right,
one of them
absolutely.
ties in.
But I think the one that I've tried, and I've done it, and I continue to do it with Tammy. And I'm going to give you an example. And this is a funny one. She probably doesn't even remember this. So I go for a treatment, and that morning I was flossing my teeth, and I was flossing, and it was a little, you know, there was a little bit of blood. You know, I don't know if you get that once in a while, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So, you know, okay, I thought, oh Jesus, you know, I've got to get to the dentist, whatever, not thinking about it. And I think I have a treatment with Tammy, maybe that day or a day or two later. And then I go and we're, you know, running, you know, through the machine to kind of see how my body's doing. And we had done some before, and we were kind of seeing how I was gauging. And then we started to talk about just about what we should see. And she said to me, and I thought, this is really freaky. Your gums have been bloody. I'm like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, well, how did you know that? She said, and you had said to me that the machine was showing you that there was something in my gums, and that it was actually bleeding, and I was blown away.
Yes.
And, you know, at that point I thought, okay, let's talk about this, because I'm experiencing it and I know what it's done for me. So Tammy, let's talk about how what the concept of biofeedback is about.
Well, I mean, the life system, the life biofeedback system, to be specific, because there is many systems out there, but not all of them are FDA approved, and not all of them are recognized. Some of them are just personal stress reducers for in-home use and such. But the life system is designed to aid in the reduction of stress and muscle relaxation. I mean, it does go much further than that by reading the stress frequencies that the body is giving out. Because during your first initial interview, I go through doing an overall, which is taking in about 7,000 frequencies and putting them into 39 different categories of the body. Now, this can be anywhere from allergens to respiratory to digestive to spinal, so on and so forth. But it allows me to see the quantum stress levels in the body that are subtle, that are so subtle that we may not even be noticing them at this point. And sometimes it'll take it to the level of, like you were just saying, it took it so long that your gums were bleeding. Now, maybe if I had seen you prior to that, I might have been able to pick up that stress frequency in the body and said, we have something that we're looking at here. You know, it's nothing serious ever, because they are just stress frequencies. Stress frequencies can be rectified. You know, especially with not only work of a proper holistic health practitioner, but also the work of your at-home care. So with that being said, you know, being able to pick up those stress frequencies in the body to see what's starting to happen, what's starting to come. And everything essentially comes from stress. We know this, whether it's Western medicine, Eastern medicine, you know, holistic medicine, metaphysical, however you want to go about it. We all know that everything comes from stress. That's why we have been trying to combat that since the beginning of time. Apple a day keeps the doctor away, kind of thing, right?
So the machine, when someone
Yes,
comes, you kind of
yes.
put them on the system, and then you're kind of looking for the stressors then that the body is showing you at that time. Is that what you're
Yes.
looking for? Okay.
Yes, I'm looking for the stressors that the body is showing me at this time, stressors that the body has been holding on to for long periods of time, because I do have a program in my machine that is a neuro-emotional program, and that will show me conflict stresses in your life. It will show me relationship stressors in your life. It will show me even conception stressors from the time that you were conceived as the time you were growing up until now. I mean, it can even show me predictive, preventative, that if you keep on a certain path of these stresses, that this is the outcome of it. So that's where we can be a lot more preventative and focusing on the type of stress that you're experiencing to alleviate the possibility of a dis-ease in the body. But we have to find where those stressors are first. Sometimes it happens right off the hop. Sometimes we need to look through the acute to the subacute to the chronic and see what's been going on for long periods of time. That is now taking an effect and a toll on the body. I mean, like, we even know, go ahead.
So let's talk. Okay, so you do the assessment, and basically what just for anybody listening, you lay on like a massage table, and then there is things that she puts on your wrists and on your legs.
Yes, you have. So what I'm doing is I'm putting, I'm literally using, I can pretty much show you them. So everybody kind of has an idea here. So I'm just putting little electrodes like what you would wear, almost getting like an ECG, except that this one wraps around your head. Then you have ones that wrap around the wrist, one that wrap around the ankles. So I'm monitoring all of the subtle energies and frequencies coming out of the body via those sensory areas. So what I'm looking for is it records the subtle stress potentials. It allows the flow or the blockage of information that reflects a profound system of communication to demonstrate and show me that interface so that I can start kind of working through that with you. So example, let's say you came in for a biofeedback session. The first acute thing to show up was relationship conflicts, trauma, abuse, emotional detachment. These are things that I would bring up to you and say, are you aware, for one? Because some people are, some people are not. Not everybody's aware of what they're afraid of until they start to discuss it and unfold it. The human body is like an onion. It has multiple layers, and we have multiple years to hide those stressors. So sometimes people that are aware, we can start working through it a lot quicker, and I can start talking about where these frequencies come from. And we can actually start rectifying them, not only via the machine, but via yourself as well, because you start to recognize where you're in denial, where you're in stress, where you're in pain, where you're in trauma, and you start to express it. And that's just another format assisting the biofeedback in what it does in helping you to alleviate that frequency.
So when you do that, you find it out, the body shows you that, and I know, so what happens next?
Well, it evaluates the responses, and then it challenges the individual with the information by feeding it back into the client.
Okay.
So not only do I take that information from you via multiple frequencies, but I also take those frequencies and I feed them back into you.
Okay.
So after I'm done feeding that back into the client uses the information to self-regulate and redefine areas of stress and muscle tension in the body, or any other areas,
So how do you do that? Because just because, okay, let's say you give them a prognosis, you say it's a relationship problem, you share that with them. The machine is showing in particular areas of the body that's the stress.
Yes.
And then what does the machine do?
So, well, what I'm doing essentially is like the 5-point harnesses contain 8 LED light emitting diodes. And they provide a full spectrum of color, which is used to assist in the release of stress tension, and as well as the essential release of muscle relaxation. Okay. So I'm actually using light frequency to retain information and then re-emit information back. So it's almost like smoothing the frequency out, in a nice way to say it, I guess. So I take the stress frequency and then I smooth it out and I reintroduce it back into the body so that your body looks at it in a different way and it can redefine it. So instead of looking at it like it's harmful, it's now looking at it almost like it's more beneficial, and the body can alleviate it much easier instead of fixating upon it and creating a further frequency into maybe an organ or somewhere else in the body.
So do you direct the machine? Does the machine intuitively?
Now the machine actually, it's you that directs me, which is the interesting thing. So I mean, this is not something that I just get to sit there and play around or play God or anything like that. The machine shows me what is going on quantumly with you and energetically, and then the machine guides me into what you need. So if you only need the neuro-emotional program, that will actually show up on there and gear me towards the neuro-emotional area for you, so that that's where we're focusing our treatment, because that's where you need rectification. If you needed the CellCom program, where you've been storing so much in the body at this point that you're actually starting to affect organs, then we can go into the CellCom program and start working through the vibrations and rectify the vibrations individually into each of those organs to remove those stress frequencies.
Interesting. So based on what you find, that protocol gets adapted into the machine, or you put it into
each individual.
Machine. Right. And then let's say it's, hey, the person's having problems sleeping. There's a protocol that would probably go towards it. So how long?
And it actually shows that stuff. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize that we're a lot of the stress that we're developing. I mean, aside from the societal and all of the other stuff that is placed in front of us that we have to deal with, but a lot of the other stuff is coming from the lack of self-care. Okay. Not putting in the proper sleep time, not putting in the proper dietary time, not putting in, the proper self-love time. Mm-hmm. And then without that, we seem to stress more because we're not taking care of ourselves. And then we bury that until it erodes, and we have to do something drastic, unfortunately. But that seems to be a pattern that I see a lot of.
So on average, and I know this is a hard question, how often, let's say someone comes, maybe they don't have a lot of back history, they, maybe it's just present stress, maybe it's a stress at work, whatever. How long does this treat, how long, or what's the average amount of sessions, say, that someone would have with the biofeedback?
Well, I mean, that it is a hard question to ask because it is based upon the individual. Right. Like you said, if it's not somebody who has a whole lot of issues going on, just the standard kind of day-to-day life stress, maybe, the more simplistic things. I mean, no stress is simplistic, but what they would consider, most of the time their sessions are anywhere from like 4 to 6 sessions. And then I see a lot of change, a lot of drastic change. And most of the time the people just start, it's almost like getting a lot of clarity given to you because you've been so bombarded here for so long that you're not even reading your own frequencies properly. So it's almost like you get a lot of clarity in the sense of where you need to go, what you need to start doing. And also you start getting that vibration happening in the body for it to start to happen. So people with a little amount, I mean, anywhere from 4 to 6 sessions. People who have been through severe trauma, anywhere from 6 and up. Right. I mean, and it really all depends on how much work that person really wants to put into themselves. Right. I mean, the machine is FDA approved. It's a U2, M2 class license. We've done double blind, triple blind studies on this. We know 100% that it works. But at the same time, it can't be just a Band-Aid. Mm-hmm. We can smooth out these frequencies. We can rectify a lot of things. We can work through a lot of beautiful stuff. But at the same time, that comes back to that self-care and that self-health care and being preventative and not going back into the same mode, not going back into a cycle again, and fully moving forward and not just utilizing it as a fix-me-up when you can't take anymore.
So can you walk through me through maybe a scenario, an actual scenario you've worked through?
So Yeah, recently, I've just started working with a gentleman. I won't give away too much information.
Sure, I get it. Just make it general. You could change things up, but just the process so people might be able to understand it.
Well, this gentleman, he came to see me, and he's had a couple of sessions. He's had 2 sessions now. The first session, we spent a lot of time really just looking into everything and seeing what information we needed to gather for him. By his second session, he came in and he hadn't cried. And I'm an intuitive person. I don't know how to explain it, but I get feelings in the moments of things. It's like I get guided to say or to reach out a certain way. And that's what happened during the session. And the biofeedback actually found that he had went through a massive trauma when he was a child. And he hadn't cried in 30 years. And me even just bringing that up allowed him to start releasing, and then it allowed him to start talking, and then it allowed him to start healing, essentially, because he hadn't wanted, he didn't have actual memory of anything, and he hadn't wanted to even find out, but he had emotional memory there. And he knows. So we were able to discuss things. He knows, but me being able to bring that to the surface and the biofeedback, finding it and seeing that he had went through that trauma at a young age, it brought it to a surface. So I was able to address this with him and then help coach him through the releasal and through the repair. So it's been quite beautiful. Then I've had other people who have had allergies that are bothering them, and they can't figure out why. And they have a frequency that seems to not react with certain pollens, but yet it doesn't show up on an allergy test. Yet these people are extremely bothered. And I've been able to find those allergens and start rectifying those frequencies through their body. And they've actually noticed that their sinuses have cleared. They're not draining post-nasally as much anymore. I've also worked through certain womb traumas with women, with rape. I've had some women who have went through some very traumatic things, and they didn't understand why they were having so many health difficulties in their reproductive area or with their bladder or with anything in that area at all. And the biofeedback was able to find a frequency connecting that trauma that they were still holding on to, and that they had actually like placed it in there and held on to it with ownership. And by doing that, it can manifest in multiple different ways. And it was. And by working with the biofeedback and finding these frequencies and being able to work with the people and the machine and rectify it, there's been great success. There's been great healings. And I'm just on my knees to be able to be a part of it. Even the simple things. I've worked with children, who are struggling emotionally, and they just don't know why. They have anger, they have, just sheer hatred going on and can't figure it out. And I've been able to find the frequencies that were disrupting them and disturbing them and work through them and rectify those and get them back on the right path as well. So it's done a lot. It's definitely done a lot of things.
It's quite fascinating. And it's one of those things. I think, I'm a analytical person in my way. And so there's no words to put to it other than you do. I remember the first 2 times I went, I fell asleep both times because I think my stress level was so high. And then after that, it just became, whatever the machine was doing, I was like, okay, let's just let it do its thing. And the markers and some of the things that I was experiencing had dramatically dropped since I'd seen Tammy a couple of times. So really, let's look at the lens that of emotion, and let's talk a little bit about medical Qigong.
Yes.
And a little bit about the hot stone stuff and massage. So just let's kind of talk about what and how with touching the body. Yes. You say intuitively we had messages that tells you, but what kind of things from medical Qigong, for instance, how does it kind of assist to clear emotions that are blocked?
Well, medical Qigong, it is a practice of rebalancing and restabilizing the internal Qi of the system, of your whole entire body system. So, I mean, for me, I've been going through this for a little while now, and it is another journey that I'm honored to be a part of, because it reestablishes the heavenly and the earthly chi. It allows any form of blockage or stagnation in the internal chi to start to flow again and start to rebalance itself.
And internal chi is what?
Internal chi is your internal energy.
Okay.
It is everything that, it is your internal light. It makes it all pump. It gives your body vibration and life and essence.
So when people come to you for medical Qigong, for instance,
Yes.
And are they aware of the blockages sometimes? Or
No. A lot of people, and this is what's a very interesting thing, is that a lot of people know that they're feeling heavy. A lot of people can point to areas that are painful, maybe inflamed, maybe it's cold, maybe, it feels bruised. It all depends on the person. But I mean, a lot of people are able to come in and say, well, I feel heavy and I feel stressed and I feel tired and I'm wore out and completely exhausted and my legs are heavy and I just, I'm not sleeping good at night. And these are all the things that people can bring to me, which is a symptom of a sign, right? Like, so these are now all the things that they're suffering from, but where does it originate from? And within the body, what's very interesting, I mean, even just looking at the spinous process, the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, the lumbar spine, in your cervical spine alone, within your C1, if your C1 is compressed, if it's displaced, if a facet is disturbed, you actually have fear, you have confusion, you have a fear of wanting to run away from life, you have a feeling of not being good enough.
And that's the top half,
and that's just the top half. Yeah, that's just the top half. Up into here is the C1. Okay. And so that's just that area being compressed. Now, getting into it even further, each spinal segment holds an emotion. Also, each organ holds an emotion. And after storing things for so long, that's when we start to finally feel things. It doesn't just happen overnight that, oh, I was stressed for a couple of days and now my whole entire body is in pain and I'm suffering. No, that's normally like 20 years of buildup. Mm-hmm. That's normally, time of emotional turmoil or verbal or mental or physical, whichever form it comes in.
Yep,
but each area, like I was saying in the beginning, is from the time that we are conceived, our body is storing 6 gigabytes of information, which is 6 hours of information per second per cell that is developing. So not are we only storing trauma even from the time that we're young, because I mean, our mothers could have been suffering trauma while we were in utero. We may not have that exact trauma, but we do have a stored emotional response to that. Mm-hmm. And that's what's very interesting, is that a lot of this stuff is happening right from birth. Before we even have the opportunity to decide how we're feeling, we already have feelings placed upon us.
So with the medical Qigong then, what you know from the body, and I'm going to assume this, and you tell me, because I'm often quite incorrect, things...
No, you're fine.
Get housed based on the blockages that are existing.
Well,
that into the organs or the different parts of the spinal system. How does medical Qigong help?
Well, what it does is it allows you to start opening up the flow of chi to that area. So, I mean, we do have specific prescriptions that we can give out to the patient pertaining to what their issues are. Or what their stressors are, or what the problems are in their internal systems. Like, let's say, if we're talking about the liver, which a lot of people have liver issues because of what we do day to day. But look, if we're talking about the liver, it emotionally holds compassion. But if it's been emotionally affected, it will also hold anger and resentment. After long periods of time of storing anger and resentment, we start to show a lot of those symptoms again. But the medical Qigong We have certain prescriptions, we have certain practices, we have certain exercises that you do that allow the internal system and the internal chi to open up, and we can gear directly towards that organ via specific meridian channel, or whatever system we need to use for that person.
So
It really is.
what would be some of the symptoms of anger in the liver? How would that show for someone listening?
Well, anger in the liver, I mean, that could come out as being extremely aggressive towards others all the time.
Okay.
Feeling as if you are never wrong.
Okay.
Like no one can ever tell you that you're wrong. There's never a possibility of that. And when someone does, you become quite agitated by it. It can show in, like I was saying, resentment as well. Not just with anger. There's multiple emotions that are attached to anger. And the liver, because it is the scriber and it holds all of these stories, it holds all of that. So in developing the resentment, you could start to act improperly towards your spouse, your partner, your children, maybe. You're resentful towards the fact that you have to do your day-to-day work, maybe. And that can indicate a liver dysfunction there.
And physiologically, how might it show?
Physiologically, I mean, if you start having symptoms of liver issues,
Okay.
Discoloration in the skin, in the eyes, and the fingernails can show up.
Okay.
And then it can further from there. You could also notice that your hair is a lot more brittle.
Okay.
Like the very simple things, these are just little things, and it does go much deeper. It would take me hours to go through all of this with you. Not that I wouldn't, but you might just start noticing things like that. You might also start noticing that around the tongue, you have ridges, like indents. It's almost like as if you're biting on the tongue, but you're not. And that can indicate a liver gallbladder imbalance in the tongue when you have ridges around the side of the tongue. But yeah, when you have the ridges around the side coming out to the front, that is all liver and gallbladder channel in the mouth. So that can also give you a good indication that there's a liver dysfunction going on. But if you find yourself getting up every single day, feeling yourself hateful towards having to get out of bed and go to work, angry towards the people that you see on the street, feeling road rage while you're driving, these are all indications that you're storing anger. But where did the anger come from?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't just get angry. Right. That's almost kind of like the last emotion.
Because I think, the average person could probably relate to some of those symptoms, right? So I think looking at it from that perspective, I may not realize that maybe if I'm in my internal world, I may not recognize that I'm being as aggressive as I'm being potentially, but I might recognize that my hair's a bit more brittle. Or I might, realize that, like you said, blotchy eyes or whatever. So I think those are important, because what happens oftentimes is that people, they listen to the physical symptoms, but the psychological, thoughts and the emotions are often things that they're easy to bat away. Yes. But until things actually somaticize in the body, that's when oftentimes people start to wake up and say, whoa, I've got to do something. Would you agree with that when the people come to see you?
100%. I would agree with that 100%. Most of the time, like I said, a lot of people aren't, we're not taught this. And this is a big problem, is that we're not taught that, my vision gets blurry and there's nothing wrong with my eyes. Well, what could that mean?
Right.
Nobody says, that could mean your liver is not doing so well, and that, you maybe need to detoxify, or you maybe need to work through emotional turmoil, or whichever way it is. But nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says to you, you have heartburn, even though they call it heartburn, right? Nobody says, you have heartburn. That must mean you have heart fire. And if you have heart fire, that means you're having an emotional imbalance in your joy, but nobody says this stuff to us. Nobody teaches us these little things. We just get told, acid reflux and heartburn, take some Tums.
Right, absolutely.
Nobody says, are you okay?
Right.
Nobody goes, well, wait a minute. How are you feeling lately? Right. Not just what are you eating. All of these modalities come together as one. And I think looking at the person holistically
overall versus kind of just only on the one symptom that's potentially put a Band-Aid on the one symptom. It's really looking at the person overall and kind of figuring out what strategy is best for them, and to kind of go a little bit deeper.
100%. Each person's trauma is relative to them.
Right.
And each person needs something individually. I mean, one person, and I think I've said this to you before, you could flick somebody and one person might see that as, oh, you flicked me. That just broke my heart. And another person might laugh and go, ha ha, I'm going to flick you back.
Right. Absolutely.
Right there is the individuality. But to each person, it's relative. So I mean, it really is looking at the whole system. It's not just going, okay, I see a liver imbalance. It's going, okay, I see a liver imbalance. How's your emotional life? How's your nutritional life? How is your active life?
Mm-hmm.
It really, you have to take the whole body into consideration. That's that mind body unity. It has to be a whole thing, or we find that we're separating too much and we're only treating individual things at that point. And then we may not see as much success. I see greater success with my patients working with all of the modalities that I have gained, along with the biofeedback, than I do just working individually with one thing over another. Now, mind you, lately I've been working with just the biofeedback over a lot of other things, and I've seen great success.
Right.
I cannot deny what has happened in front of my eyes. I mean, some of it I'm even shocked at myself, along with my intuition with people as it continues to gain, as I continue to grow. It's quite shocking. And I've realized recently that we need to be paying attention to the energetic body, because the energetic body really does play a huge role with the physical body. And if we're not treating the energetic system well, we don't seem to treat our physical system well, because we suffer from it, because we start to lack that energy, and it starts to shut down.
And that's where the dis-ease of the body comes from. Now, Tammy, I know we could probably go on and on, but what I want people to know is, tell them do you have any last words of wisdom for somebody maybe that's struggling, and let's say they know they're having some physical symptoms, what kind of things they might, a couple of first steps. And then we can talk about where people can get a hold of you if they wanted to talk to you, because she's located here in the Niagara region. But we could also talk about, she could direct you to other resources for people that could offer different services if you're not geographically located where we are.
Yeah, last words are, I've lived a lot and I know how scary it can be. But once you see yourself, you'll realize how beautiful you really are, and then you don't forget that. You don't forget that once you see yourself. And it doesn't matter where you are, you can come out of it. There is help. You just got to reach out. And I know that I'm definitely one of the people that always reaches back. Awesome. Doesn't matter what the state. But that's kind of where I'd leave that. And to let people know that it's okay to love yourself, and it's okay to forgive yourself, and it's safe. It's safe. Your inner peace is safe. So, and on a side note, I am located in Niagara Falls. I'm located just off of Dorchester Road at 7361 Mountjoy Court. My webpage is spirituallyintune.ca. That's where you can find all my information if you want to reach out to me and contact me. If you have any questions or anything, I have no problem answering. If you're just looking for some insight, not an issue. If you're looking to book an appointment, I can't wait to work with you. So, yeah.
Awesome. So thank you, Tammy. This has been amazing. So I guess what my takeaway is that we, looking at ourselves holistically is so very important. And what we know is that, the marriage of Eastern and Western philosophies are coming along, but we're still now in the primary phases. And to recognize that blocked emotions are there. Our body stores emotions. We know that. That's been proven. And then, of course, that impacts our energy, and we are all energetic beings. And to recognize that some of these things that Tammy talked about today have been amazing. I've tried most of them, and when I was having some struggles last year, and it's made an amazing impact on my life. So the step is to just think, what am I experiencing? and what do I need? What small step could I take to really kind of take a hold of my health and to go from there? So again, thanks for tuning in. If you're needing anything of a mental health and wellness nature, you can reach me at roxannedurhage.com, and we can go from there. Thanks again, Tammy.
Thank you so much, Roxanne. I really appreciate it.
All right.
It means the world.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannedurhage.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.